All righty. Good morning, everybody. Happy new week. Hope you're doing amazing. Another Monday. I can't believe it. July felt so long. I don't know about you guys. Was it long for you, Anita?
Yeah, it was.
Super long. First day of August and the last month of winter. I'm excited about that. So next to me this morning, I have got one of my OG authors from many years ago. Oh God, I think you were in November 2014 retreat. Was that right, Anita?
I think it was it 2015?
Maybe,
I
yeah.
don't, yeah.
15. Yeah, you're right. It was
Yeah.
15. So 7 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And guys, Anita's been in my life for all this time, as well as she's writing second, third books. She's been building up her business, as well as she's the current record holder of the longest book ever written. Look at that book. Turn it. Yeah. 500 pages. The book is called The Wolf in a Suit. We'll tell you guys more about it. The 7 secrets is inside relationship abuse. Yeah. And she's used these metaphors of fairy tales to talk about this, which is a very clever way of doing it. And she's helping so many women worldwide move beyond. And that's why today's topic for discussion is like the new ways to move beyond stress and depression and abuse and all that kind of stuff, which she's an expert in. So thank you for joining me this morning, and it's lovely to see you.
It's awesome to be here.
So what I'm going to do is I'll just give the official introduction of who you are, and then we'll get stuck into like the content. And I always love picking up tips from my authors, So here we go. Anita Bentata is a highly skilled mentor, facilitator with nearly 30 years experience in Western and Eastern science, psychology, and neuroscience. In this time, Anita has explored the relationship between love, stress, and trauma to research clients, follower stories, and her journey out of trauma. Anita realized why people become stuck in stress and trauma and difficult thought patterns, habits, and relationships. This led to developing the Essentials Me method. I think that's what it stands for. Yeah. Which is transforming lives and freeing people from relying on time-consuming techniques and therapy coaching to manage stress. Anita is the author of The Wolf in a Suit, and soon to be released The Truth About Love, Abuse, and Therapy, as well as The Inner Essential Journey. With her calm, comforting approach, Anita inspires and imparts clarity through a practical blueprint to move beyond current perceptions into generative possibilities, freeing the moment, no matter the past or current environment. Okay, so that's amazing. I know every time we touch base, I go, I'm doing this and I've set this up. And so tell me, let's go back the 7 years.
Yeah.
Just before we met. How long was this book, churning within you that you really wanted to bring out into the world before that?
Well, many years ago, I was working in a counselling agency and I was running domestic violence groups, and the women in the groups knew that I was a survivor myself, and they asked me to write a book to explain why women get caught in abuse and why it's difficult to get out. And I said, of course I will. And then I totally forgot about it because I was so busy bringing up my 2 young girls, building my business, doing all of that. And then it was when I was 49 and I was thinking of my 50th birthday and how significant that seemed to me. And that was when I remembered, because I'd totally forgotten this promise. And I thought, I have to complete this promise. It wouldn't feel right not to fulfill it. So I then was looking for how do I do this, and I came across you on Facebook to help me because I knew I could write it, but I just knew I wanted some support. I'd done a lot of things on my own in my life, and I just wanted someone to be there with me through the journey.
Well, it was a big journey, wasn't it? Because the book ended up being, for those of you guys that not familiar, as Anita showed earlier, it's massive. It's like 500 pages. And it turned into 4 books into one, which is what we would say. Most people write the 40,000 words, but yours was how many? 120 or 160?
I can't even remember.
I remember it was 4 books.
It's something like that.
Why did you decide? I'm always curious about this. I know you've told me years back and all that, but why did you decide kind of that's the size it needed to be? Is it? You tell me.
Yeah. Well, part one, which is a third of the book, is my story. And I felt like it was important to talk about it through my story rather than client stories. Just it's easier for confidentiality and everything. But I didn't want to write about me. That wasn't the intention of the book, but I felt like there was lots of great insights and things that I think people could relate to. So, but I didn't want it to just be that. And there was a lot of more things that I wanted to expand on. So part two is where I unpack about 10 fairy tales. In part one is Little Red Riding Hood. And in each chapter, there's one or more fairy tales that I unpack, where I bring in new information through the fairy tales. So I didn't want to do them separately.
Yeah.
So it just had to be
what he was.
Yeah, it feels like it's a manual with all of the pieces there.
I love that. And as we always say, our book is as long as it needs to be, and yours needed to be that long. And I mean, I was very impressed that you only took 12 months to get it finished. You didn't take like 5-10 years. You know, yes, we were saying 3 to 4 months, but that was if it was a 40,000 word book. And then you kind of, if you really think about it, and we say the size of almost 4 books into one, and you did it in a timely, I think in a timely manner in those 12 months.
Well, on the weekend, I did part two, virtually the whole of part two, but because it was my story as well, I just typed that myself when I came back. And I think it was writing the book took, I think, about 6 months, but the editing process, because it was so big, was slower.
I can imagine. It was
that was the challenge more than the writing it.
In hindsight, when I think other books we do now and we published and all that, you actually did it super fast. I think for that size of the book, that was like you actually smashed out the project in an amazing time frame. So congratulations on that. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the things that have happened now the last 7 years. You've developed obviously the Essentials Me method, and doing other things. So talk to me a little bit about that, and then maybe we can share some strategies of the new ways people can overcome and deal with stress and trauma. And what do we really need to know? What are we doing wrong? And how should we be thinking about this?
Yeah. So I started to realize because I've been working this year 27 years in the field of therapy and counseling. And I started to see patterns with clients, and people were coming to me from seeing other practitioners, and they were using what was considered the best trauma techniques, and they were still struggling, and their life was still revolving around needing to use these techniques to get through the day, to manage things. So they weren't free. And the thing that was a huge value, is a huge value for me, is that we want to be free. And not be dependent on our circumstances or our past, or, whatever is going on in our environment to limit us. And so that really bothered me. Plus, there was a personal situation where my daughter got really ill, and I had to go and help her. And that was connected to a whole lot of her stuff from childhood came up. And so in revisiting things with her and noticing what it was activating in me, and I'd been through a lot of therapy and a lot of the best trauma therapists, and that's what I ended up training in. And even I perceived that, well, this is the way it is because this is how it worked for me. But as time went on, I started to think about what I'd learnt about the brain, and realized that no, some of the things we were doing, even though they were great, they were actually a slower way, and they weren't aligned with the way the brain works. And so one day I was just sitting in my lounge room, and I said to myself, well, I can see all of these gaps happening in the best trauma modalities. And for me, any counseling qualification is inadequate, because and I've talked with other therapists, I've supervised other therapists, I've trained other therapists, I've had them as clients, and as well as talking to peers and colleagues. And I don't believe that there's any university qualification that has the adequate skills about the brain, about trauma, about abuse. And so people are going into therapy and getting re-traumatized. And that's also happening in outside of university as well. So anyway, I was sitting in my lounge room and I thought, well, I know what's not working and I know the way the brain works. What would I create if I was going to create the method, if I'm saying this is wrong? And I started writing it down, and then I looked at it and I thought, oh my God, I have to do this. And so I started, it was based on me doing experiments before that day. I had started questioning things and I'd been doing lots of experiments. And so doing for a couple of years, some work on myself using what was stirring in my mind with my questions. And then I put it all together. And then I started getting amazing results, more than I could ever imagine, where we'd resolve the trauma really, really fast. And every other area of their life would also be blooming. They'd start up businesses that they hadn't planned to start up. Their relationship would change. Their relationship to their exes would change, to their parenting, to their friends. They'd have friends saying, I don't recognize you. What's happened?
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
So what are important things for us to know? What are some hot tips? I know you can't unpack your whole method in these 30 minutes, but what are some things that kind of really, what are two or three mistakes we make thinking we can resolve our stress and trauma? And what are two or three things maybe of how we can flick that and do it better?
Yeah. So the way I say it is, most of the methods that are out there, it's not that they would be wrong, but they're a much slower way. They're dividing the system, because the brain is very, very associational. And so as soon as you start talking about something that the brain, you know, when you talk to someone, your brain's always doing a search for, how do I relate to this? What does this mean for me? And so when the brain being associational and filling the gaps, if you're doing something that you think is progressive, but your brain knows why you're doing it in association to the past, it's still lighting up your system. You're still revolving around that. And so the first thing to remember about the brain is that it's very, very associational. So if you're feeling a shadow connection to something, then it's still connecting and lighting it up. Because the second thing is, the area of the brains that get lit up when you're thinking and feeling about something are the same areas as to where it originated. And so it keeps deepening those neural pathways. So we want to find a way to be able to progress without denying or ignoring what's affected us, but we're taking care of it in a progressive way that I talk about is a very clean way. So it's not lighting up those associational pathways. And often that can help to have a mentor to do that, because we've often got blind spots about how we interpret things. Because I guess the third thing that I would say is the stories that we tell ourselves, that we absolutely will say are absolutely true, and they may be true, but there's always, I find, a greater truth that we can step into. And so we want to be able to look at our stories, because I don't know if you've heard this statistic, but we have like 60,000 thoughts in a day, and 95% of them are repeat thoughts, and 20% are 8 of those repeat thoughts are 80% are negative. So that goes to the fact of the brain, that the brain goes to what it's done most recently and most frequently. So we can have the greatest leverage by looking at how we interpret things and how we talk to ourselves. And when we work with how the brain works, then we can dissolve and disintegrate old neural pathways and deepen and develop new neural pathways. And you can actually feel it changing. I show people how you can test that, you know, this really is happening. You're not just telling this to yourself.
So this is all within the essentials method that you would take clients through and mentor through. So tell me, how do you work with people nowadays? Obviously, it's been 7 years. I mean, I know you've done your fair share of one-to-one and all that kind of stuff. Talk to me a little bit about how you help people now through this, because it sounds very interesting.
Yeah, thank you. Well, when I first started this method, I was doing it one-to-one, and then I got some government funding in 2020. So I was able to do it with over 80 women. And some of the women that had done it one-to-one asked if they could join the group program. And I was thinking in my head, why? Because you've had the best one-on-one. And I thought, I'm not going to say no if they want to. It's always useful. You can always deepen more connections. But what they told me afterwards was, they got a lot out of the one-on-one, but actually when they were in the group, they were more motivated to connect to the other people in the group. So it helped them keep the process more front of center and not get distracted in their life. And when they started doing it because they wanted to be able to connect with the other women, then they started having bigger personal changes. And so then they started doing it more for themselves than for getting connected. And so I do work as in groups now. I still do offer one-on-one for those that do want it. And I also offer self-paced, where you can go through it yourself, but within that self-paced program, I also offer for anybody that journeys with me in any format, that you still get my support, because for me that's really important, so that you can go beyond your interpretations and the way you talk to yourself about things. So you still get my unlimited support, where we send audios to each other with you practicing the techniques, you letting me know where you're at, and me giving you. And the women say that that's amazing, that regular contact really makes a difference to integrating the material into their life. Plus we have twice a month group live online sessions, so anybody can join those sessions to refine things, practice, ask questions, and have a bit of that live contact.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love how you've made it available in different ways, because not every way suits everybody, and everyone learns in a different way. And I absolutely agree with you. I've been part of I've done things in the past one-to-one with people. Group, I find that what one person asks, other people don't think of asking, and the value is 100-fold. This is why the retreats, I guess, have been so effective over, like, we're about to do number 41. It's crazy. And you were at number 6 or 7. And then the do it. Currently I'm part of a program myself where I'm consuming a lot of content and learning through videos. And then I'm having a touch base with a coach to kind of almost like check in. This is what I'm doing. Is this the right thing? Like, that it's a really good way. It's because you want people to take responsibility, don't you?
Yeah.
As well. Because this is, like, you talk about one of the things, become your own expert of your own stuff. Tell me a little bit about what you mean by that.
Yeah, well, one of the things many years ago when I was giving talks about domestic violence, I would ask the women, did you have early warning signs? And every single woman, including myself in my own journey, had early warning signs, but we didn't listen to them. And so for me, I stopped giving those educational talks, because I thought the system is going to take the time that it takes. We can see we're still talking about the same things as decades ago. But we don't have to be dependent on the system changing for our life to change, no matter what's going on. And so for me, it was more about teaching everybody to know how to listen to, connect to, and trust your unconscious, your instinct, your intuition, because that knows more than the physical reality of the moment now, because the moment now is often, because of the stories of how we interpret things, is a momentum of the past. And we want to not be looping into the way we keep seeing the current moment, but going ahead from it.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, very cool. So what's the future hold? What are you going to do in the next 2 to 5 years?
Oh, I have so many things. I've got a list. So as you mentioned before, I thought, because riding the wolf in a suit it really started a journey for me of questioning things and changing things. So this was, from what I saw, was not being spoken about in the field from that was really long overdue to be known. And the next book that I'm writing, The Truth About Abuse, Therapy and Love, is all about me tying in those realizations that developed when I developed my method as to why you don't need therapy, why you'll never need therapy again, and the myths that we're told to do with love and our, personal development. And so I'm writing that book. I'm also, because people keep asking me, can you write the Essentials Method as a workbook? So that is going to be the book following. Plus, I've already written some children's books. I want to get the messages in a simplified form to children and to reach the parents that are with those children so that they can also benefit from it. So there's games and books for kids, a whole series of kids books too.
I love it. Primary readers, your grandchildren now. So
yeah, absolutely.
I love the fact you built a bit of a character behind all of this. So something you guys may not know. Look at her background. She's kind of in the woods where the wolf would be going around, and when she does speaking gigs, Anita comes out with a red cape, like Little Red Riding Hood, and she's developed this kind of character that engages, because the topics she deals with and the people she helps are very serious, right? And they're very sensitive and all that kind of stuff. But I just really love how you've talked through the process and teaching people through stories. Yeah,
I still get messages and emails and audios, because people that communicate or buy from me know I like talking audio rather than text, because you can say more. And so women are messaging me audios of, I'm reading your book, I'm up to this part, and oh my God, I can relate to your story. And just last week, a woman writing saying, oh, this is so healing to read. And the one comment that everybody's made that's blown me away after I wrote my book is, I can't put it down. And I never thought that I'd get that.
A 500-page book, I can't put it down, right?
Yeah, and because of the content of it too. I wanted to make it uplifting to read, as I didn't want it to be a heavy read. And the one thing everyone keeps saying is they can't put it down. So that's been awesome.
Well, I can attest to that, because often people have come to me saying they know you or they've gotten your book because we have that connection, and they have said the same thing to me, like,
Really?
that was a great book. So just so you know, like, especially in the early years when you published, when we were like sort of more, in others' spheres, that's what the feedback was as well. So isn't it wonderful? I often say to the new authors who are about to start, like I say, if you can just help one person, will this journey have been worth it? And they say, absolutely, save someone's life, or like in situations like this. But as you can see with Anita, it's 7 years on, she's saved probably thousands of women worldwide through the stories that she put on in the book and all that, and sharing and being vulnerable to share your own, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So how was the process? Let's talk about, obviously you wrote a massive book. So you just mentioned just earlier when we started, you actually spoke out your second part of the book during the 48-hour author retreat back in November 2015. And how did you find that whole thing? I mean, the process is obviously been tweaked and refined 7 years on. It's just so much streamlined. But, tell me about even back then.
I absolutely loved that weekend. It has a special place in my heart. It was a beautiful way to put the book down. It was so focused and uplifting. And so why I journeyed with you and why I still journey with you is because you're so organized, you're so uplifting, you're so you've just got it all. And for me, that was a great model for while I was unpacking my book. And I loved the weekend. It was inspiring, and it kept me on a momentum after the weekend to keep on going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we actually spent a whole year at my home. You were doing the sales mastery mastermind.
Mastermind. Yeah.
Like 1 day per month over 12 months, with a small group of people. And yeah, we kind of did that as a follow-up, and soon we'll be working on the second book, and
Yeah.
all that sort of stuff. So no, I really love, like, every time I speak to you, there's great things happening, you're organizing, and you've never stopped taking action. So I've got to give you the credit. It's not just that I'm magical or the process is magical. You got to do the work. It has to be takes two to tango. And if you do the work and you follow through and you pick up the steps and keep going, you'll get to where you need to. So I love that. So tell me how people can contact you. Maybe share your email address, because Anita's website's in a little bit of progress right now. So I'm going to tell you guys exactly how to. So you can either contact her on their email and directly get a signed copy of this amazing book, which will be a package, not an envelope, to receive. So what's your email address?
Anita Bentata at gmx.com.
Easy.
And if you email me, I can then send you the link to my the website that I have up at the moment.
It's just a bit complicated, guys.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say it, but Anita is spelled normal, Bentata, Bentata at gmx.com. So people who are listening to this as an audio, hopefully you put that. And also, guys, I'm just going to share my screen and just show you it is available on Amazon. You guys know that you could download a sample to check it out, the first 20 or 30 pages on there. There it is, The Wolf in a Suit, and you can get it from there as well in a Kindle version or normal paperback. But if you want the signed one and connect with Anita and actually start communicating with her, then just email her at anitapentata@gmx.com. And any last parting words you'd like to give our listeners?
Sure. My work stemmed out of the domestic violence and abuse. However, the way the brain works under stress is the same as the way the brain works under trauma. It's just further along in the continuum. So if you're interested to be able to optimize and use more of your whole brain and feel more focused and more in line with your energy, your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, then don't tell yourself, oh, I haven't got that history, you can't connect, because I can show you. For me, it's like learning to do up your shoelaces or tell the time. What I teach is, I think, what we all should have learned growing up about our own brain and how the brain and the feelings work together, and so we don't get caught in unhealthy patterns. So
so do the work. I mean, we evolve as we grow. What was available back then is not like now, wasn't available, is available now, or we're learning a lot more about the brain, the mental health, and strategies that can help us. And just, I think, reading, listening to stuff, doing programs like yours, we always up level and find a new way of being, and ultimately it's about freedom, right? Freedom of the mind and everything that we experience, so we can have the ultimate experience of this physical presence. I love it. So thank you, Anita. Everybody, have an amazing week. Go and check out Anita's book, check out what she does, or email her, just ask a bit more about her essentials method, because she's got a huge community of women that are doing it. And when you do it with other people, it's so much more commitment, accountability, like kind of just like other people just that are like-minded like you. So have a great week, guys, and smash it out. Bye.
Thanks.
See you, Anita.